I don't care how many quotes these people said. And we brought it up. We brought it up before.
Because the reference to God was a universal God.
Well, exactly.
And so the Christian dominionists want to capture that and say, well, that means that we were a Christian nation. We aren't. And, I mean, my God, if there's any evidence of that at all, it is Thomas Jefferson's, rewrite of the Bible and taking out all the spiritual and miracle stuff in the Jefferson Bible. He was a deist. And people have a really hard time with that. But the bottom line is that we were, not mine, mine came over later. I was an immigrant. My relatives are from Scandinavia. But all people want to think about are immigrants or from Mexico or something, and that's not the case. We're all immigrants, all of us in this country, every single one of us, from Ireland to Italy to Scandinavians to whatever, and everybody had, some level of discrimination. I mean, remember when there was, no Irish allowed. And we've lost touch with this. It's like, if you're brown or black, you're, then you're in this sector. But the bottom line is that the founding fathers really, really struggled to establish this country as a country who would not be based on a theocracy. And I know that is not a term that a lot of people get in this country, not necessarily our listeners tonight, but theocracy. And this is what this extremist movement is doing to this country. They want to, in their opinion, reclaim America for Christ.
And they always use that word, reclaim.
Revert.
And Gingrich, all these different movements. It's always
they use this whole kind of backpedaling thing. Never were. But there are too many people in this country who are too ignorant, and that doesn't mean stupid. The root word of ignorant means to ignore.
And also trusting, because most Christians aren't liars. This is why people like David Barton have to convince them that this stuff is true, so that they think that the agenda of the dominionists is justified by history. That's the thing. I mean, he's got to convince these people, because most Christians, if they know it's not true, they're not going to spread it. I actually get emails from Christian homeschoolers telling me, wow, I read some of your stuff and this and that. Can you recommend, I don't want to use Barton stuff anymore. Can you recommend a different history curriculum? So I went and did some research and found a history curriculum. But I just want to get back to the reclaiming thing real quick before I forget that some of these military ministries now are using, and have been for a while, the lines like reclaiming the military for Christ.
Oh, they are. Like it ever was.
Oh, yeah, they are. That's the reclaiming is a buzzword here that is showing up in just the way the Seven Mountains does. I mean, there's certain things that phrases and things like this that are showing up everywhere, like the buzzword reclaiming. We have, I can't remember which ministry it is, but it's that you've lost something that you need to get back.
Right.
Something's been taken away from you. You need to get that back, and even though it hasn't, and it's almost
four phrases of buzzwords. We the people. I'm getting so sick of seeing that. We the people, reclaiming, then liberty and freedom. And it's like, now when I see these things, it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm sure it's one of these Christian things that it always is. Oh, don't tread on me. Yeah, I haven't seen that one too much. But those four, it's like, oh man, and so is this kind of thing that being taught in the military, is that why these people are getting drawn to this kind of culture?
Yeah, actually the researcher, one of our volunteer researchers, the one I was talking about a few minutes ago, that finds a lot of stuff in these base newspapers, just a few days ago sent me he came across a thing printed by the Army. He's got the Army logo on and all that, put out by a chaplain that has the whole story that was a God spam email that was widely circulated enough that it's been debunked by Snopes, okay? about what happened to the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the sacrifices they made. They lost their family, they were killed, they were this, they were that, which most of it is a bunch of crock. I mean, it's basically, but it was one of these spam emails, went all over the place. And this fraudulent history is now printed in a thing that's given out, that's printed by the U.S. military. And, I mean, this goes all the way back to, Deborah, I was telling you yesterday when I was talking to you about how the reason I started working for MRF, it actually happened because of David Barton. And here's if you want the big overlap as an ending note here, because we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we've got
is that when I was writing the series on Talk to Action about the lies in the public school Bible curriculum, Bruce Wilson on Talk to Action, he just started Googling around the name David Barton and curriculums and hit the junior ROTC, the high school ROTC core American history curriculum textbook has an essay in it by David Barton on the myth of separation of church and state.
Oh,
so they're getting them young. So then I wrote an article about that about 3.5 years ago called the Department of Defense Bringing Historical Revisionism to a High School Near You. That's when one of MRF's volunteers saw that and said, wow, your work overlaps with Mikey's. You need to get hooked up with Mikey. That's how I ended up working for MRF starting 3.5 years ago. It was because of David Barton. So for all the people out there, David Barton, people that wish I had never started working for MRF, blame it on David Barton. So that's a good note to end on, right?
No, I'm very glad that you're doing that. I know the sacrifices what you guys are going through is just absolutely unbelievable, and hearing the extent of this stuff, just it blows my mind. I mean, you know it on one level, but when you hear it come from the real people who are working in this field, I have no words for it. It is that disturbing to me. So I do hope that people at least visit religiousfreedom.org and find out what's going on. Also visit Leah's blog, which is godsownparty.com. Leah and I have sort of joined forces a little bit there, and so we've got a lot of the God discussion feed running through there as well. What did we get your traffic up? 500,000 in Alexa so far?
It was unbelievable, and I'm so appreciative because you've given me time to write on my book and develop my webinar series.
Exactly, and so and then of course definitely visit Chris's site, which is Liars for Jesus.
If people want to be entertained, go to the video on my site that's No, Mr. Beck, Our Constitution Isn't Based on the Book of Deuteronomy, because in that one I dressed up like David Barton and played the Star-Spangled Banner on my guitar because some people were criticizing my videos saying they weren't entertaining enough. That's going to be my Halloween costume, too. My Barton costume is going to be my Halloween costume. I'm going trick-or-treating as a tea partier. I'll just spell fascist wrong on a sign, and I'm ready to go.
We love you, Chris.
And next time we are going to have a collection of people, and we're going to be talking kind of a pre-election show about some of these things. So the thing just told me I've got 2 seconds left. So thank you, Chris, so much. Thank you, Leah, so much. And for all of you who tuned in, thank you. And be sure to go to God Discussion, sign up for our newsletter, and you'll find out who our next guests are.